All right. Well, hello and how are you? Welcome to another edition of Happy Hour Live. I am Wes Styles from Rock 96.7. Thanks for coming on board and hanging out with us here this afternoon. Lzzy Hale of Halestorm going to be coming on with us here as well in just a second. Don't forget, if you got a question, go ahead and drop that into the comment section wherever that might be for however you are viewing this particular Happy Hour Live. Facebook, YouTube, whatever the case may be. Drop it in there. Grace, our producer, is looking over them and going to be sending them to me as well so that we can go ahead and get those questions in here for you. So without further ado, let's bring in Miss Lzzy Hale right now.
Hey! Ta-da! grand entrance. How you doing, Wes?
I am good. What is this now? Week 10 of
Something
working
like
from
that.
home? Yeah, at this point for me. It's been kind of crazy. Doing the whole work from home, also homeschooling my 10-year-old stepson
Oh,
has been
yeah.
a royal blast, let me tell you.
I bet. I feel for all the parents out there. I'm one of those people that is in my 30s and does not have any children. And for the longest time, got teased about that for a long time. And now everyone's like, oh yeah, no, it's a good thing you did. No, but like it's such a task. And yeah, everything's getting really blurry. I had a streak of about 10 days and thankfully I'm like working, but I don't know what day it is anymore or like what happened. Like it's hard for me to like, was that okay when that happened? Was that yesterday or the day before? Or maybe that was last week. I don't know. So it's very Groundhog Day.
We had a Zoom call this morning for my cluster of stations between all the individuals who work there. And somebody was like, we were talking about the whole misconceptions of days. And I was like, there's only 3 days of the week now: yesterday, today, and tomorrow. That is all I live by.
Me too, man. Right on.
Wow. What have you been up to now that, this whole quarantine thing and being off the road? Or actually, you're supposed to be, I guess you carved this time, right, to be writing a record around this anyway.
Yeah, we were lucky to have to just it happened to fall into we had just ended our record cycle and we were literally just slated to be at home writing anyway. So I've been doing that, but it's funny because I feel like since the lockdown, have actually been busier than I would have been if everything had stayed normal. Started a bunch of things. I have a show every Friday on YouTube / We Are Here, HEAR, and also just like a lot of different things. I've been doing a lot of like, live stream performances, which has been interesting for me too, because I'm like kind of a one woman act, and so because I don't have my guys here. But the writing's been great, but even that has become a relay sport. So basically I've gone back to how we used to write, like back in like 2004 when we were all first starting to kind of like figure each other out, the four of us. And so basically it's like at the time, back in the day, I had this like 4-track recorder, like Tascam cassette recorder. So it's very limited. So it's just like I went back to that, as in like I limit myself to about 4 or 5 tracks, and I write the whole song, I write the riff, I do the vocals, and there's a click track, and then I relay that to Joe, and then the rhythm section gets it after that. It's like it's been really funny to write this way, but I like it. It's taken all of us out of our comfort zone and thrown us into just thinking about songs in a different way. So in a small positive aspect of lockdown and the pending apocalypse, we're writing good songs.
Well, hey, I think it was Lou Bruce that said, if there's one good thing that's going to come out of this next year, we're going to have so many killer records coming out from so many artists that are sitting at home and having to do what you're doing. Just sit back and write because you can't be on the road.
Yeah. And that's been weird too. The other weird thing is I've been doing a lot of stuff around the house. And what I realize is that during this summer, this is supposed to be like our summer festival season. We've never really had off during the summer, because even when we were writing for our last record, we went out on tour during this time just to kind of like, keep up with everything. So what I'm noticing is that like I have all these flowers that like I've never seen before, in my yard, and like I'm rediscovering things like, was that always there? So this has been the longest time that I've spent at home in this stretch, probably in over 15 years. So I don't know. It's been strange being in one spot. I need a gig real bad, but I'm staying busy. Put it right in the arm, right in the arm.
Right there. Have you found yourself cleaning the house a whole lot? Because that is something I have found myself doing, is going through a bunch of things and do I need it, pitch it, even sometimes talking to myself about things in that regard.
I'm so glad you said that, because I caught myself in my closet talking to myself the other day, because I'm trying to. I have two different. It's a very Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde thing that I got going on. The racket that I got going on as a girl, and closets, because I have a small closet that's next to my bedroom, that's downstairs, and then I made a room upstairs into this like enormous closet for all of the stage gear that I've collected over the years, like all my shoes, all the stage stuff. So I've been organizing that to be like kind of this like almost display of all those things, and so a place to put them. But I realized I could probably dress the village people up there. It's like I told all my friends, I'm like, if we ever like have Halloween again, just come over and borrow whatever you want. But then downstairs, like I've kind of made it into more of a kind of a capsule wardrobe, just kind of like uniform stuff that like I know I wear every day, and that in a pinch I can like look kind of rock starish, but it's like kind of relaxed. But yeah, I've been vacuuming, and I like that way too much. I didn't realize. I spent the majority of my young adult life trying not to be wifey, like around the house and in the kitchen. And now like I love to cook and I love to clean. And it's like, yeah. And I talk to myself.
I work in my basement, so this is me every day.
Yeah. Like, what time is it? It doesn't matter.
Yes. The one thing I have found is if you talk to yourself, I'm okay with answering myself, but when I get into an argument with myself, then I have a problem.
Yeah. No, that was part of my deal the other day in the closet, was I was like, okay, like, well, if I do this, no, but I shouldn't do that though. I should do that. I was like, wait, am I literally having conversation with me? So scary,
What was the end result of the conversation? Did
I
you
won.
or the
I won my own argument.
One way or the other, you were winning.
Yeah, I was right. Yeah, no, it's been interesting, man. It's like it's strange, because every time that like you kind of see like a human like in the distance, like our like I live on a lake, so there's like this little cove community, and at one point in time, so my neighbors kind of like directly over this cove, they're, some of them are musicians, so we all did this like massive hang where we could all like see each other at a distance, and then the people across the cove like cranked up their PA system with like a karaoke thing and just sang to us for like an hour and a half. So, look, it was kind of like your own concert. So it's been interesting, like the sense of community that's been happening, and even on a global scale, like I see like even in our community and just like our fandemonium, like everyone's like checking in on each other and like just helping out, and hopefully after all this blows over, we'll all be nicer humans.
Yeah, the one good thing I agree with that could potentially come out of this. You spoke of cooking a lot more. What has been like your go-to? What are you finding that you enjoying cooking a lot?
I've been experimenting a lot because I now have the time, but my go-to, I make a really mean mushroom risotto that I add blue cheese to. If you're a blue cheese fan, there's and then like we'll grill up steaks or something to have with it, and that's like a super nice thing. But I tried my hand at homemade pretzels the other day, and they actually like turned out great. But that's a whole racket. I do not recommend unless you have like a block of time to do that, because it's a whole like timing game, and there's boiling stuff over here and you're whipping stuff around. And the first time I attempted it, I realized halfway through the recipe that I didn't have all of the equipment that I needed like, to like knead the dough and do that. I'm like, oh no. So like I ended up like taking the flour, like the dough that I made, and like made these like chocolate chip like muffins instead. It's just a whole thing. And now it's like, well, I'll always say yes to adventures. So I've been looking up like recipes to do weird stuff. Like the other day, I made this like really simple but like lemon pepper salmon thing, and then I used my my folks got me an Instapot
I love the
while
Instant
back.
Pot.
And so I did like all the rice in the Instapot. I'm like grilling the salmon. And so like that's been a really nice thing too. It's like multitasking tool.
Yes. That Instant Pot is a godsend in so many ways. We
Also,
have
there's
that.
like 7 minutes and it's done. What?
Yes. So many things you can do with like chicken, and you can make beef stew in like half the
Oh yeah.
time. Oh, so good. One thing too, and I can't really this is where the conversation's going, but we also bought it's by the same company that makes Instant Pot, but it's called a Vortex.
Oh, I've
It's
never
an
heard of that.
air fryer, but it
Okay.
also can be like a dehumid. It like takes the it can take
Oh,
the
so you can like make jerky or something or
yeah, we've actually made jerky. Yes, thank you. We've
yeah.
made jerky with it and everything. So
That's
that
cool.
thing's been
I might have
amazing
to
too.
invest in that. Some dried fruit and all sorts of weird stuff. Yeah, I don't know. It's fun, and it's weird how like the meal has become kind of an event that I'm looking forward to because I miss that. I miss having like
Mhm.
going out, and like the sad thing is that like there were so many shows that were supposed to be happening this month that I was going to go out and see, but I put them in my calendar, and so now like because I didn't delete them from my calendar, like they're just like coming up, and I'm like, oh, I can't go see that. So I'm like,
Oh,
well, I'll make something to do.
there you go. Yeah. Well, and like you said, you guys do a lot of shows in general of like, the what is it, the loudest month of the year with Danny Wimmer and all them.
Oh yeah, yeah,
You're
absolutely.
typically on those shows. All those got postponed. And I'm gonna ask this because I don't know the answer. Are your upcoming summer shows still on, or have you guys postponed those yet?
They've been postponed.
Okay.
They have not been canceled yet, which is good. But yeah, it's I don't know how the future is just very unknown, you know. So it's like depending on because even if the thing is that even if like we had a cure right now, if we everybody got tested and we got the vaccine and everybody was like, all right, a-okay to go, it's still by the time it gets to that point, there's going to be this mentality that like, okay, do we still have to social distance? Like maybe no, or maybe people can't afford to go out. So it's like it's been a very like strange thing. We've gotten these weird offers that we're not taking because it's not just about the audience social distancing, but like we want to protect our crew. Like there was this thing that which in hindsight was a really good idea, but the Grand Ole Opry here in Nashville
Okay.
trying to put these like streaming shows out, which basically means you get a skeleton crew together and you set up at the Opry and then they just stream it out live, which you know great idea, but it's like that means that like some of our crew would have to get on a plane, travel, we'd still have to like kind of hang out, and then there wouldn't be an audience there anyway, so it's just like we'll just keep on keeping on the way we're doing it.
Right. That'd be kind of weird because of how high energy a hailstorm show is to
Yeah,
not have a
calm
crowd with that.
yeah. That has been a really interesting thing. I did this performance, which is so strange, but really awesome. This performance for charity from that She Rocks organization. And so I ended up donating a bunch of money to Crew Nation via that. But it was weird because I was the headliner and there were two openers, but there's I need like a canned applause thing, like
Right.
like
To come in with.
like a button, because it's so strange because it's like okay, and also it's just like it's like a one woman act, so it's not like I got like drums behind me and whatever. So the live performance thing has become really strange, but yeah, I'm looking forward to feeding off of an audience again at some point. And dude, if I thought I lose my mind every night when it's normal life, going on
Mhm.
stage, like as in like just something happens and something clicks and you're just riding this wave. I don't even know how I'm going to react to my first show back, like with an actual live audience. Like, I think I'm just going to go nuts. Maybe I'll
Well,
start crying. I don't know.
well, how do you see that going to be? Because you just mentioned a little bit there. Do you think like maybe smaller shows will be the way to go there for a while? Because I mean,
Maybe. We've talked about that as a band, and it depends, like because it could go both ways. It could be bigger shows, but then it would be a bigger lineup because everyone's trying to help each other out. Maybe there would only be a limited amount of people, allowed into whatever
Mhm.
the arena or whatever. Or, the guys and I were talking about that too. Like maybe it's like do a small venue run, and make sure that like because in that aspect too, like there's a lot of small venues that I don't know how many are going to come back from this because they're dependent on that crowd every single night. And so, we were thinking maybe doing something like that to even just help them out when this is all done and gather some peeps. But I don't know. It's really strange because I feel like every single day, or at least every single week, there's like new news that you don't necessarily believe, but you kind of do, and you're just aware of like what's going on. But it's like it's I don't know. It's like we're all gonna have to see when we get there. There's gonna have to be a definitive line. And right
Yeah,
now it's
that
all very
finish line
vague.
has to be there at some point.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's gonna be a strange time. I'm looking forward to it. There's been so many shows canceled. I miss that whole idea of being able to just be at a show, see some people, high five a few people, get up on stage and intro like you, and get to see the crowd react to you. It's definitely something to be missed.
Oh yeah, and when you're the same as me, that's not just a job for you or a career choice. That's a primal need, and
Mhm.
that's something that when like even with me, like when I live in Nashville, which is just there's something going on every night, and I miss going out and being an audience member and being in a crowd and feeling, everybody levitate when all of a sudden their favorite song comes on. Everyone just you just are a part of this thing. And for me, like whenever I'm in a bad mood or if I'm like just kind of like rolling around with this dark cloud, as soon as I go see a show, even if it's not playing a show, it's like you can physically feel that cloud being lifted. So it's like, yeah, I don't know. It's like that's just a thing, and I miss that very much.
Yeah, absolutely. You live in Nashville. You mentioned that, and I will never forget going to see the Smashing Pumpkins reunion tour. And
Oh yeah,
out of nowhere, oh, here comes Lizzie on stage.
dude. It's so weird because it was seriously last minute, and Billy Corgan DM'd me over not DM but like messaged me over Instagram, and so I'm just like, what is this the real guy? And it's like, yeah, and it's like whatever. And so then like we ended up exchanging, management teams and whatever, and we got everything like official. But yeah, that was super last minute. It's like, yeah, just come down and like here's how we're gonna arrange it and just like come out for the end. I'm like, okay. Yes, yes, sir, Mr. Corgan. But no, that was a lot of fun, and it's funny. I've done a lot at Bridgestone in that aspect because all of our buddies that come through there, they're like, "Are you home?" And if I am, I'm like, "Yes," and then I say yes, and then they're like, "Well, can you learn this real quick?" I'm like, "Yes." What did I just say yes to? Now thousands and thousands of people. Don't screw it up.
And now your new hometown. Who's been your favorite or most, maybe not favorite, but most for you personal favorites person you've been on stage with?
Oh wow. That's interesting. I mean, one of the bigger ones for me, honestly, was when I got to share the stage with Tom Kiefer from Cinderella because he was like literally the reason. Probably the reason that I do a lot of that guttural stuff, with my voice, and honestly, the reason that I play the guitars that I do were because of him. So that was kind of a mind blowing situation. Also, honestly, like getting up with Alice Cooper was crazy as well, and his whole band. I mean, because that was an every night thing. When we're out on tour with them, they're like, "Yeah, you got to get up for school's out, and you take the first solo and sing with us and whatever." And it was like, "This is awesome, dude! Like that's amazing." Um, off off of that, the one time that I performed with his side project, Alice Cooper's side project, the Hollywood Vampires, that was a trip too because not only was that in Brazil, which I'm sure there are some people on your chat that are Brazil rock fans. I mean, they're some of the craziest and most giving rock fans in the world. So it was a crazy night. But I shared the stage with Hollywood Vampires, which Hollywood Vampires is not just Alice Cooper. It's Alice Cooper and Johnny Depp, and at the time it was Duff McKagan and Matt Sorum, and and it was funny because and Joe Perry. So in my mind, like I put on my leather jacket and I'm like, we had rehearsal the day before. It was cool, but I'm just like, yeah, I'm cool, right? Like I can hang with these guys. I'm cool. And then you go out on stage, and just being surrounded by that kind of star power is just nuts. And you're sitting there, you're like, I don't know what's going on right now, and then for one of my favorites, that's like a just an oddball, not involved in the rock scene, was doing that duet with Eric Church on the CMAs a couple of years ago, and then he had me do it again with him the next day, and that was just such a crazy time because I had just freshly kind of introduced myself to Nashville, and I know next to nothing about the country scene. Get asked to do this out of the blue. They're having me play guitar, and when we did rehearsal the day before, we just had our parts, and like, cool, like I sing this part, you sing that part, and then the next day, right before we're about to go live, and he's about to be like raised up in this elevator thing, he's like, Lzzy, come over here. I'm like, all right, what? And he's like, I changed my mind. There's going to be a whole section like at the end that I'm just going to like stand back and you just do something cool. And I'm like, what are we doing? What? And so like, he like gave me this moment to like really let me shine. And it was just, and it like, just the generosity of that guy is so cool. So that was a really cool moment as well.
Well, I can only imagine the panic at that moment because you've gone through rehearsals and now, oh, hey, by the way, we're going to throw you this curveball.
Yeah, exactly. Why not? Yes to adventure. I'm not going to say no, but I have a love-hate relationship with diving headfirst into the shark tank and then just figuring it out. On one hand, that's where sometimes magic can happen. On the other hand, not so much. We do that in our live show. We don't use clicks or tracks, no trickery. I'm not miming. And then we also throw in these kind of audibles every single night. We'll have like a basic idea of like what song we want to do it in, and then we'll just be like, okay, I miss the misery. We are not necessarily going to end it where we're supposed to end it. We're just going to go off and do some impromptu jamming, but we have to listen to each other because it could be a complete train wreck or it could be this magical moment that happens. And so, but that's up to us. So that's like, I don't know. That's where life happens, I guess.
That's the fun of a Halestorm live show, is just seeing what happens next. And good to know that you guys don't use click tracks, because a lot of bands do. For those who are viewing this and don't understand what a click track is, that's just to help you keep
Time. Yeah.
Right.
And whether it's the whole band listening to it or just the drummer, it's the voice of God, So what we noticed, so we did try the click track, and we use a click track in the studio most times, unless we want to have some kind of elastic, time signature change and all of that. But just so everyone's on a grid and knows where to come in and out. But live, we don't do that, only because we missed that ebb and flow. And also, when you have a click track going, personally for us, you stop listening to each other and you start just listening to that, because, okay, here we go, we're marching along. And some bands expand upon that. Some bands, I've duetted with bands that literally have a chorus in 1, 2, 3, 4, like this Siri lady comes in.
Oh.
And it would come into my ears when I'm duetting with certain people, and I'm just like, whoa, that would totally like throw me out of the game. So again, I'm not knocking anybody that uses clicks or tracks or anything. Like you guys do you, but for us, it never worked out that way. I like having that live energy, but I also like being able to call those audibles, or like if we want to stop the song and talk to somebody, or if we want to do something, we have control over that. And even when we screw up, because it's going to happen, whether you have a click track or not, or tracks or not, stuff is going to happen. It's like, that's just the way it is. Mm-hmm. But when our freedom with that is that when we do kind of like, have a little bit of a train wreck, we are able to then listen to each other and bring it back. Whereas I think that if we had all of those other things, or the click would get off or something, I think that it would make that more difficult. So yeah, just personal preference.
And two things about the click track. I've heard the click track. I had a band for me actually give me their in-ears, and I put it in. That is the most annoying sound in the whole world.
Absolutely. It would just, like you play a rock show to have fun. You don't want to have this ping, ping, ping in your ear.
And that's all it is. And second, you talk about tracks. I won't say the band name, but their drummer would cue their tracks. Well, that track machine died before they went on stage. So they had to, and
Oh,
this is maybe 08, 09 at the time, they had to take an iPod and give it to the soundboard engineer, the sound guy at the front of house. And he then had to go ahead and cue the tracks for every song based on when the singer put his hand up like
oh
that
my gosh.
for
See,
the whole show.
nope, nope. You can have it. There was an experience we had. We were opening up for this band, and it just, big band, professional band, and we found out that day that they don't actually play their instruments on stage. Everything is on like a thing because the computer went down, and then the show did not go on. As in, like, they it maybe happened like the second song in, and the crowd's chanting, and even I'm just like, can't they just plug the amps in or something?
Mhm.
And it never happened. So I feel like too, what happens with, and again, I'm just saying this as personal preference, what happens when you start relying on those things as a band is that you forget how to do it live, how to do it with your bandmates, and how to troubleshoot, and how, because it's like that's what we're known for. So, and maybe it's out of fear of sounding small or whatever. uh, but it's not a whole lot of times it's not the band's fault for doing those things. A lot of times it's management or label or somebody around them in industry being like, this is what you do if you want to be professional, and an arena rock band. So I feel for those guys too. But yeah, it's never been our MO, and thankfully, the team that we have around us has never encouraged us to do that. Not that we would do it anyway, but it's like we're just doing our thing up there.
Well, you guys have had great success, and just this year you released the 10th anniversary edition of the debut album. I know it meant while it's called the 10th anniversary edition, it's 11 years at this point,
At this
right?
point, yeah.
Yeah.
Time flies.
And I was digging through, and we go back long before that record. I think it was
Oh
still the
yeah.
One and Done record,
Oh
and
yeah.
you guys still had
Like
the
the Drive
RV.
or something. Yeah.
But I was going through and I found this.
Oh no. Oh, that's awesome.
The original that you guys were selling at shows,
Dude.
that
Oh yeah, man. Absolutely.
the
Dude, there's only
original.
like a handful of those that I think that anybody can find anymore. That's super cool.
Yeah, I just go digging through a bunch of albums and I was like, "Oh, what is this little sleeve thing in here?" Oh, it's the original Hailstorm record with no artwork that we were all shelling outside of a venue in
Yep.
Jacksonville, North Carolina when I was
You
working
guys
down
wanna buy this? Hey, do you wanna play this? I remember
there.
you were one of those guys. I think that didn't we like didn't we weren't we like aggressive to you? I feel like you were one of them. We're just like, hey, we're like the opening band. Do you want to interview us? Not
You
really
might
knowing
have.
how that works, but you're just like, hey, we're here. But
I
you were always so nice to us, and we clicked and hit it off right away. And
Mhm.
the fact that you haven't gotten sick of us yet is no small feat. So thanks for that.
Absolutely not. You've always been a pleasure, everybody in the band to work with, even from the days when your mom was still with you guys on
Oh
tour
yeah.
to now.
Oh my
And
gosh. Those are good times, man. It's like it was all still very like new, just
mhm,
on a different level, because we had gotten to a certain point, at a regional, local scene where we kind of we knew where that was at, and so as soon as we got on a major label and really started touring, it was like I remember being like, who was it? I think it was Shinedown and Seether, when we were out with those guys, and they're like, "Yeah, what do you want on your rider?" And it's like we're like, "I don't think we've ever had a rider. What do we put on our rider?" And so we went through all this stuff, and they gave all of it to us, and like that we had such a great time on that tour. And then we directly went on the next tour and realized that opening bands don't always get that type of treatment. Like we were
Right.
arguing, like we were battling over just getting like a case of water, every day. Like on that next tour, we're just like, okay, we know how to treat our opening bands now.
Yeah, you learned a lot of lessons. I mean, you guys have had a lot of time on the road. I mentioned that old RV. Is that thing still around?
Okay, get this, right? So yes, because when we retired it, we ran that thing into the ground, and we were just gonna like junk it.
Okay.
And Josh, our bass player's dad, said, "Hey, no, I'll take it and I'll refurbish it and turn it back into a regular RV." So like when we had it, we built bunks, and like tried to make
Right.
it look as bus like as possible. We're just trying to fool ourselves, into thinking we had a bus. We went through like dude, I don't know how many like alternators and fan belts, and we blew the engine out, and like we ran that thing in the ground. But our bass player's dad bought it, and he refurbished it. And get this, so now, right now, because Josh, our bass player, lives in Nashville now, but he's refurbishing his home. So he's been living in that RV for like the last, like, I don't know how many months, like 6 months or something like that, getting his home redone. And he's like, dude, guitar picks fall from the ceiling. I don't know how, what it is, but we keep finding. You would think that we had found them all, but like he's like, I'll be sitting there like on the toilet in the morning, and all of a sudden it's like, dude, clink, and I'm like, what? There's another one. There it is, you know. But yeah, but they're ready to be out of it, because it's like, that's a small space to spend.
Right. I can't even believe that thing is still functioning, and you didn't burn that thing to the ground when you were done with it after all the miles you put on it.
I know, dude. It's like, I guess it's like just kudos to Josh's dad. I mean, Josh's dad definitely knows his way around cars, and he used to like race Porsches and stuff like that. So like, he's very mechanically and inclined. So, you know, and that honestly was the reason that we lasted so long on that thing, because Josh inherited that knowledge. So it was just like one of those things where like every time, it was like every day on those early tours, like Josh would be under the hood, you know,
side of the road. What's going on? What's wrong today?
Crazy times.
Oh man, that's crazy to hear. But now, you know, you've grown, you're prospered, you're on buses now, you've got a home studio. I can see behind you.
I feel like I've been like hoarding for the past, like, you know, 23 years. This is like, even like this little keyboardy section, it has like my old Fender Rhodes. It's like a 70s Fender Rhodes, but I got it. My mom and dad got it for me from a flea market when I was like 14, just kind of starting. We just started Halestorm, and I wanted something cooler than my Casio keyboard that I was on at the time. And so they got that for me, and I still have it. It's a little junky, but I keep it around. And
well, it's a great memory to have. And
yeah, I got a lot of toys here. But it's fun, man. It's like, I don't know, little bro, my brother / drummer, for those of you just watching, my brother's my drummer, and little bro just dropped some knowledge on me on our last tour. He just like, out of the blue, he's like, hey, do you remember like when we weren't in a tour bus, and our very first tour bus experience, like being invited onto somebody's tour bus, was Seven Dust. When we were teenagers, we had gone to see them at a Lancaster show at a club called the Chameleon Club. And we were brazen little kids, so we knocked on their tour bus because we saw it. We like, hey, we're in a band called Halestorm. How you doing? You know, which I would never do now, by the way. Like, I would never like invade somebody's privacy like that, just knock on their door. But we did, and they invited us up. And we gave them our like little demo and whatever. And we were so nervous. We were just like, I don't know what to do. Where do I sit? And they were offering us like a drink. We're like, no, we're just going to sit here. And then went and see the show. Long story short, they actually ended up playing one of our songs from our demo over the PA system right before they went on. And I recently told Morgan how much that meant to us at the time, because we're like, well, if this band that we love so much thinks our demo is good enough to play over their PA, maybe we got something, you know? So anyway, I digress. But little bro is like, you know, that was like such a weird time, because like we didn't even know what the inside of a tour bus looked like at the time, and they invited us on. And now a tour bus is just a part of our everyday life. It's part of our life now. And he's like, isn't that cool? And I'm like, yeah, bro, that's really wild. You know, it's like those little moments that like those little mile markers we were able to say like, wow, like look at how far that's come, and then look at how far that's come, and we're still together. You know, we haven't killed each other yet, which I think is our biggest accomplishment. No, nobody's gone postal.
Right. You know, still the original group together from when the first album came out to now. That's saying something, because a lot of bands in 10 years can go through one to the whole crew, if you will.
Yeah, man. And we've been a 4-piece since 2003, 2004, somewhere in between there. And I remember back in the day, so we had kind of like a rotating door of young musicians, like 16, 17-year-olds that either didn't have the drive, or I should say the obsession, that little bro and I had, or their parents would take them out. Like they would be in the band like for like 6 months, and the parents would be like, "Nope, you're not signed yet," or "Nope, you're doing bad at schoolwork or whatever. You should get a real job." And so, like, when we found Joe and Josh, it was a feeling that we hadn't had, with the other, rotating door bandmates. Like all of a sudden, it was a band. Like from the very first time the four of us jammed, we ended up jamming on a Beatles song, "She's So Heavy, I Want You," and it just went on for like 15 minutes, and we were like jamming on it, and like, RJ got elated and like just did this like Keith Moon move and like destroyed his drum kit in the basement, and like, whoa, this is nuts. So it's like, so as soon as we started doing that, and we were already booked for gigs at the time, and so we just hit the ground running, and it literally, our relationship hasn't changed much. Like still, the fart jokes are very much a part of our everyday, humor, and we haven't really matured. So maybe that's why we're still together. Nobody's really grown up yet.
No, that's awesome to hear. You said you guys have been working on music. What has been going on there? How far are you in the process in concerns of writing this new record?
Well, technically, our pre-production has been put on hold. Like, if everything had been normal, we would already be in the studio,
Oh,
hashing
wow.
out ideas. But we've written a ton of songs, and I've kind of been taking this time in this positive light to just top the songs that I have, and so, which is great, because at this point, everything that I had written for the record before the pandemic is still there, and some of it is good, but I'm writing. I've been topping it. I've been writing better songs now. So by the time this blows over and we get to go into the studio, we're going to have a lot to choose from. And plus, like lyrics mean something different now. And just the act of making music is something different now, because even at this time in my life, like usually, so if we were in the studio right now, I'd be having kind of like weekly meetings with, our A&R guy and like people at the label, and we'd be, sending demos back and forth, and like kind of, getting our whole team involved as to what we want on the record. And so now it's kind of nice having the freedom to just write out of an act of joy, and not write as a business move, and not write because we have to make a record. And so I think by writing as just simply an act of joy, the way I would if I was 16, without anybody breathing down my neck or any deadlines, it's kind of nice. And I think that it's made the songs that much more personal, but also that much more. It's like two ways. Like some of the songs are like extremely like personal, because I'm kind of, I don't mind that anymore, and I have nothing left to hide. But also, in a much broader sense, they're more empowering than I think my previous, material has been. And so it's been fun also to show these songs to my bandmates, and us building that up together, without even a producer involved, and just purely chasing what gets us excited. And it's also been fun to like rekindle that that relationship of everybody's roles. Like right now it's kind of like a Full House method. Like I birthed the kid and they helped me raise it, the three of the guys. So it kind of starts off with me, and so I'm the first line. So if it doesn't work, with me, I can't send it on to Joe, and he can't send it on to, Josh and RJ. And like I said, with that kind of relay sport mentality. So I don't know. It's been nice to kind of reconnect with what you think is important, and also that the simple fact that there are 4 members in Halestorm, and we can't hold this thing up without all 4 of us, being 110%. So I don't know. We've reconnected with that on a bigger scale, I think, because of this pandemic. So again, I'm trying to look at all these things in a positive light, because I'm concerned, for a lot of people that I know, and I've been working on my own like mental health, as far as like just this entire thing is just nuts. We're just living in a different time. But by doing those small acts and just really like paying attention to the positive aspects of this time that we're in, and trying to make the most out of it, has been really joyful.
That's awesome. Is Nick going to be producing the record again?
Yeah. Yeah,
Awesome.
it's funny. I've sent him a handful of songs, all of which it backfired because I sent him a bunch of songs thinking he's just gonna like maybe give me some feedback or whatever, and he literally calls me up. He's like, "Okay, can we get in the studio to record these songs? These are great. Like these are like better than the ones we had before." And so like we've had to talk him down out of like, no, we're together right now, Nick. Like he's like super excited, you know. So well, we could social distance in the studio. Like we could just stay. I'm like, yeah, but there's door handles. There's all the thing. You know, we're just gonna get. Just wait. Just be patient. So it's like keeping him, you know, keeping his patience difficult, which is a good thing, but still, you know.
Absolutely. And this going to be the third record you've done with him then?
No, only second. Well, technically,
Second.
we did it. We did an EP with him,
That's right.
a cover EP. So
Okay.
technically, yes, it'll be our third time in the studio with him, but second Hailstorm record. Oh no,
So
I'm
what?
sorry. Yeah, we actually have something coming out in August that we ended
Okay.
up recording with him as well. So technically, fourth time. Yeah. So
Okay.
you're
I'm
correct.
going to ask a question about that in a second, but what makes you choose a certain producer? Because obviously, sticking with him now for a trend of records speaks to something that he can do with you guys.
I think it's just an active unfinished business. You know, we did our first two records with Howard Benson,
Mhm.
whom you know we love and respect, and we love his whole team, and we had such a great time making those first two records. But after the second record, you know, we all kind of felt like we had, you know, done everything that we needed to do as that team as it stood there. And so we ended up going on a wild hair for the third record and did our record with Jay Joyce, who I think we were the first hard rock band that he had ever done, which so it was refreshing to like just be with someone who didn't necessarily have, you know, a foothold in the same, you know, community that we do.
Mhm.
And so that was really fun to just kind of like literally anything goes and we could be really creative. And I still really love that record. But when we were kind of trying to come back to the rock thing, we had been talking to Nick Raskulinis for a long time. And when we made that cover EP, you know, with him, that Reanimate cover EP, it was kind of a testing ground for how we were going to work together. And we just loved it so much. And that was just a little taste. And so then when we made the last record called Vicious, I feel like by the time we got to the end of that record, we were already beginning whatever we were going to do on the next record. So like for me, I just want to see how far we can take that relationship. So yeah, so just gonna keep rolling down that train.
You mentioned something in August. Can you speak to what that might be? Because I mean, we've gotten the
Yeah,
Vicious Script EP.
in a vague sense. So,
Okay.
so it's another EP. It's not entirely a cover EP. It's not entirely, you know, it's a little strange. We ended up kind of like redoing a bunch of things, just being real creative. But one of the shining moments on that EP, which I was able to announce the other day, was we re-recorded our song off our second record called Break In, this ballad we had called Break In, and we had Amy Lee do a duet with me. So that's going to be released then, and on that EP. And it was truly amazing to record because we recorded that with Nick Raskulinis as well, and he has such a, you know, a strange method, you know, to how he records things. So Amy and I show up to the studio, and he has, you know, we'd already recorded all the tracks and everything, and Amy came in the studio, and we set up two mics in the same room, and how he wanted to do it was have both of us sing at the same time, do all of our parts as a performance from beginning of song to end
Mm.
of song, and that's how we're going to track the entire thing. So to give you a gauge of how difficult that is, and it would have been more difficult if Amy had not been such a powerhouse because she's just an amazing singer and musician.
Right.
But how that generally works, instead of each one of us doing our parts separately and, you know, being in the studio and doing like overdubs or whatever it was, we have to be on, not only like individually on, but on at the same time, you know, and have everything kind of work and ebb and flow
Right.
all the way through till the end. So it's like, you know, and so if one of us screws up because we're both in the same room and there's bleed through coming through the mics, we have to do the whole thing over again. So so it was really amazing. One of the coolest things that happened with that, like, so before we started recording, Amy and I are just kind of sitting in the room singing a cappella, like without a back, without a track or anything, just to kind of like go over our parts just in our brains. And unknown to us, Nick told me later that he actually secretly recorded that as well because we were missing microphones. But it's amazing because as a singer, it's a difficult thing it's a skill to be able to sing a cappella and not stray, from and get out of tune, stray from the actual like root note. So, but we were doing it just the two of us, and it was just amazing because like none of us were off. That neither one of us are off. It's a beautiful blend of vocals because she has a very different style than I do, but we both have tremendous amount of respect for each other. And after we like went over our parts, Amy went in the other room to get like a tea or something. And I'm like, Nick, do you know how difficult that is? Not only to sing a cappella by yourself, but to duet with somebody like for an entire song a cappella just to figure out parts and stay on key the entire time. Like if that had been anybody else singing with me, it would have been a complete train wreck. So it was really a magical moment. And Amy and I talked afterward about the lyrics meaning something different now, because with our song Break In, I wrote it as a love song, just purely just, letting somebody, in, and break down your walls type of thing. And now when I'm duetting it with Amy, it's like this unity. It's like we have each other's backs. It's kind of like this, it's cliche to say girl power, but we both kind of got a little emotional afterward, after we did it, because we were so, well matched in our talents, but also just, we've been friends for years. So to be able to do that and literally like say like, hey man, like I'm here for you almost, lyrically and in the song, was a beautiful moment.
How many times did you have to track your vocals then if you two are both in the same room?
I think it was a total of 6 takes.
Okay.
All the way through. Because the first like 2 or 3, we're just like, because it's so funny because like we're both Amy and I are kind of perfectionists. So at this, when Nick was like saying this notion, we're like, oh, well, but if one of us makes a mistake, like we can just like go in and like fix that, right? And he's like, nope, it's like all there. So that element of pressure was really cool because it heightened our sense of like awareness of how we sing and how you sing together, and ebb and flow with each other's talents. And so it was really cool. So for the first like 3, we were just kind of getting used to doing that, and then we ended up nailing it. I think it was the fifth take, and then we just did one extra because like it's weird because when you have a producer, you're kind of depending on him to be like, just like, that was a magical moment. And that did happen, but we all kind of knew by the end of the 5th take that we're just like, okay, I think that was it. So yeah, I'm excited for everyone to hear it.
Cool. Well, and you just recently had Amy on your show
Yeah.
that you have online, Raise Your Horns. Tell me about Raise Your Horns, because we talked a little bit about this off air before we jumped on here to Happy Hour Live. And you're like, I got mad respect for anybody that does interviews because now you have to prep.
Absolutely. Now I have to prep every week and I have to have questions prepared and I have to fill up 55 minutes. And so if things are waning or if I've already asked all my questions, it's like, okay, now what do we talk about? And what do we do for performance and how do we make it spicy and like keep people coming back? So mad respect. So Raise Your Horns began with literally an out of the blue call from Linda Perry from Four Non Blondes. And she's done, a tremendous, just look it up. It's like she's a tremendous songwriter. She has written for, Pink wouldn't have a career probably without her. She's written for Christina Aguilera, just a slew of everything. She's done everything. So her and I become friends over the years. And, when Linda Perry calls, you pick up, So I'm literally like, hey, how you doing, girl? She's like, oh, it's crazy. So we talked about the pandemic for a while. And she's like, hey, reason for me calling is that I got this racket going on with my producer. We called it We Are Here. So it's We Are, and then it's HEAR. And basically they're trying to do this kind of like, and they're accomplishing it. This kind of old school, kind of what MTV was before MTV got like super like pushed and corporate and popular. So they're just they're gathering all these people to do these shows. So there's like Donita Sparks from L7, and Matt Pinfield is on there, and Tom Green, and it's like all of these, and Linda's on there. Like there's all these people that are doing their own shows, and so she said, I want you to do your own show, and it can be whatever you want, but just make sure you can fill up 55 minutes and tell us what you want to call it. So I ended up pretty much using this outlet. I called it Raise Your Horns because in this symbol that we use all the time is not just synonymous with rock shows and metal shows, and it's a sign of unity. Like when those horns fly and everybody does it together, it's like that you're not alone. It's a symbol of reassurance. It's a personal part of my life and extension of my personality. It's all of those things. And so basically I ended up doing the show. It's kind of a variety show of all the things that are near and dear to my heart. So we talk a lot about, mental health and mental health awareness. We talk about the importance of rock and roll. I do performances. I'm literally booked for the next like a couple of months every Friday because all my friends said yes. So like, I have the likes of, Chuck Garrick, who like used to play with Dio, and now he's the bass player for Alice Cooper. And I had Rachel Bolan from Skid Row, and I had Brent Smith on there. This week I have Kane and Kevin Churko, the Churko brothers producer. He cut his teeth with Mutt Lange. So it's so interesting. I had Amy on last week. So it's funny. It was just one of those things where I said yes without knowing what I was getting into really. And then I started doing it, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, what did I say yes to? But it's been so much fun because I get to, do something different and look outside myself, and I don't know, really. And honestly, the biggest thing is that now I know when Friday is every week. If nothing else, I know when Friday's happening.
Yep. That's awesome. You also recently put out the call to ours with the hashtag Roadie Strong, the campaign there. Tell me a little bit about that.
So we decided to create just a little bit more awareness about how this pandemic is affecting not just us as musicians, but specifically the road crews and the sound guys, the lighting techs, the people that are literally a part of our circus that the rock show would not go on without them. Like the stage doesn't just magically set itself up when we roll in at the crack of noon, like as from whatever we were doing the night before. These guys are making sure that can happen. And so we saw what was happening with a bunch of individual bands, and we've done this too, where we have specifically for the Halestorm crew, we have a shirt up on our website, just specifically all the proceeds go toward our crew just to help them out a little extra, other than where we have with retainer with them. And I noticed a lot of bands were doing that as well. But what we kind of wanted to do was broaden that. And so we teamed up with Crew Nation, who is just a global charity for all of those people and all of the black t-shirt, camo short, guys that make all this happen, and literally asked a bunch of our buddies and our rock star friends to just to promote it and to tell stories about what the roadies mean to them and these crews, because it's so much more than a crew too. It's like this is your road family. I mean, you've met our crew over and over again. I mean, it's like everybody's an uncle or a big sister or whatever. It's not just these guys that work for you. It's they make it happen.
Shout out to Detroit.
Yeah, indeed. She had a racket going on. She was supposed to. She was going to be one of the PAs for Rammstein. She got a job offer while we had this time off making a record. She's like, I'm kind of like, I've never worked for anybody else but you guys, but I want to have the experience. And I'm like, go girl, you do it. And now that's been like postponed, indefinitely. And so it's tough. Everybody. There's a lot of these people, especially with the crews. I mean, yes, like the musicians, a lot of musicians, some of us were dependent on these summer tours, and a lot of people have released records that they can't promote right now. And the advantage that we have as the band of musicians is that we can still do things. We can do what you and I are doing right now, or I can do a show, or, I can play, I can write. But like these guys, the road is their whole life. And so that being postponed and tour being put off indefinitely until whatever happens. We just really feel for those guys, and everybody who's looking for work, that just and really needs to be on the road right now. So just trying to create some more awareness and direct people in the right place to help everybody.
And how can folks find out about that through you?
Honestly, on any of our socials, we have separate links to go directly to Crew Nation. Also, if you can't donate, and you're one of those people that is struggling on your own, honestly, create awareness. What we're asking everybody is to use the hashtag #RoadieStrong and make some videos, write some things up about what the road crew means to you. Try to kind of like unveil, what goes on behind the curtain, I mean, specifically, like even with us, like we've been doing a lot of like interviews and talking a lot about how, like, okay, specifically, let's say like our sound guy, right? Our sound guy does double duty. He's our tour manager. He makes sure we get from one place to the other unscathed and make sure there's a budget happening and there's catering and there's everybody can eat and do whatever happens. And if there's a problem, he's the first line of defense when there's a problem. But he also runs our sound, and he literally plays the band, and we wouldn't sound the way that we do. You wouldn't hear my voice. You wouldn't hear when you want to hear a guitar solo. It's not going to happen. He literally makes us not suck. So it's like one of those things. So that's simply all we're asking of people. It's not a big commitment to anybody, but just help out each other. Let's it's a call to arms, so to speak.
That's really cool. I appreciate that. Just knowing so many people, like you said, in your camp and just in every camp, and even just the venues themselves, and the
Absolutely.
people that work at those venues.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel again, like for a lot of this, we were talking about this before, a lot of the smaller venues, that were dependent on that, and the people that work at those venues, like the bouncers and the bartenders and the people that we know, the promoters, it's like we're all in this together when it's all rolling, and now we gotta, if you can pick up the slack, we gotta pick it up where we can.
Well, here's hoping that sooner rather than later we can all enjoy, excuse me, enjoy a show together
Oh yeah.
in a venue, big, small, don't care what it is, just want to see it. Want
Yeah.
to be back together. We're coming up here on an hour. I appreciate all the time you given me.
Oh, anytime.
Let's wrap up with a couple quick things. Let's do one funny tour story
Okay.
from your entire career.
Oh God. Okay.
And I know there's enough of them.
Oh, yeah, there's a couple. One that immediately comes to mind, and it usually starts and ends with RJ, so I'll go with that. Um,
Oh, poor RJ. I wish he was tuned in right now so we could even get him into this
oh, I
video to
know, I
defend
know. Well,
himself.
it's funny. It's like every now and then he'll pop on. I had my little brother on my show. He was one of my first guests because I knew it would be funny, and even when it was time for him to get off the show, he still kept popping back on because he can't help himself. So my little brother's my drummer, and we were in London, and we were, at this big venue, and we were being filmed all day. And so, of course, my little brother is like, if Keith Moon and Animal and David Lee Roth all got smushed into one person, that's him. So he's always camera ready, and whatever happens. So what he ended up doing to try to impress the camera crew, which I don't know why he thought this would impress anybody, was he emptied out this huge Tito's vodka bottle into all of these empty water bottles, and then filled up the bottle with water and just pretended like to chug it, like so that they would think he's chugging like a big bottle of vodka right before we go on, right? So big sister, me, who can't help herself, took all of the water bottles that were filled with vodka and replaced all of RJ's bunk water bottles. So RJ's like kind of notorious for having like 5 water bottles in his bunk, like for when he goes to bed, because he just wants to stay hydrated like throughout the night.
Right.
So I replaced all of his water bottles with the water bottles that were filled with vodka. Um,
Oh.
so while after the show, like I did all this like before we went to bed. So I told Joe and Josh, our bass player and guitar player, that I did this. And so we're all like giggling, like little, like we're at camp, we're all giggling, like, when is he gonna find out? So we're like, we're up at like 4 a.m. just like, did he do it? Yeah, did he do it? And finally we hear this big like, oh my God. Oh geez, and we all like laugh and like clap or whatever and wake everybody up because he finally took a swig of vodka. So anyway, he does good with the pranks. So like he was like, oh guys, whatever. So we wake up the next morning and we're pulled over, and we don't know why. We're like, oh, is it engine trouble and whatever? And the guy, he was a German bus driver, so he didn't speak a whole lot of English, but he's pissed, right? He's just mad, and we're like, what's going on? And he's like, I don't know what kind of racket you guys got going on, or if you have like an alcoholic, but you gotta like figure this out. And we're like, what happened? He's like, well, I'm sipping my coffee. And he's like, then all of a sudden I started feeling like a buzz, and you guys have been putting vodka in your water bottle. So apparently RJ, to get back at us, put all of those vodka bottles in the middle of the night in the case of water that we had in the bus. So like it doesn't look any different. So the bus driver made coffee with those water bottles. So it was a vodka coffee. And he's like, I could have lost my license, whatever. And so we all had a really good laugh about it. Will trying to be respectful and explain this to this poor German bus driver, and then trying not to be late to the next gig. So that was one of those things where it was just like the prank just compounded on itself, and
right,
couldn't believe it. So yeah.
Oh, I've never heard that story. And quick shout out to all the bus drivers. They are the most underrated people in the entire business. The things they deal with and the sleep schedule they have, God bless them.
Absolutely, especially with us. Like us that are just 5-year-olds. So
all right. So we're gonna flip the coin.
Okay.
Horror story on the road. Horror story. It could be back from the RV days, could be on the bus days, wherever you want to go.
One of them that was kind of like a workmare come true, which ended up being funny at the end of it. Again, starting and ending with RJ. Because there've been a couple of them, a couple scary ones, like to give examples, like we've like opened up for Megadeth before, like way back in the day, and nobody knew that we were like opening up for them, and the crew's like, hey, they throw quarters and shoes, just like keep your heads up, they don't like opening bands. So there's that. And then Joe ended up, I think, falling, he tripped and fell over his half stack and that's just a small thing. But like this specific story, I think we were in Nebraska on one of our first tour. This has to be like 05, because we didn't have any like real tour management thing going on, and nobody was really paying attention to where RJ was. So he had somehow locked himself out of the building. We were playing this show. I think we were opening up for Seether or something. And so at the time I was opening up the set just a cappella with just me, and then there would be a cue and the band comes in, so I was just doing, I think it was, it's not you.
It's not you. Yep.
And, so just like do the whole drone out thing. And I get to like this long note that I'm holding, and I'm holding it way too long because this is when the cue is supposed to come in. I turn to either side of me, and and Joe and Josh are like, dude, stall. We don't know where RJ is. I guess so somehow he had like kind of locked himself out of the building and whatever. And so I had to make up something. I think I said something about Nebraska, but I was singing it, trying to make everybody like think it's a part of the show. I think I kind of pulled it off. But then I see out of, like, it went on for a second, and I see out of the periphery just RJ just running like from the other side of the stage, like bounding and leaping, like, and like all of a sudden, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. In hindsight, it actually ended up being like a really funny like moment. But I was like, oh my God, these are like the nightmares that like I dream about. I literally had one last night where like we were supposed to be. I was supposed to be singing with Robert Plant and Jimmy Page, and they needed me on stage right now, and I couldn't find the stage. Like I've like dreams like that all the time. So this was literally one of those that kind of turned to life. I'm just like, what do I do?
So you have Spinal Tap dreams all the time?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, and just to give you an example, like the reason that we have this like secret handshake, like not a secret handshake, but we have this routine that we do right before we go on. And the reason that we started doing that was because then we know all 4 of us are on the side stage, everybody's ready, everybody's here. Because literally like that same situation of RJ getting locked out. I mean, he got locked into a dressing room one time when we were supposed to go on in 2 minutes, and we had to have like the venue owner like unhinge the door. There's like all these things that have like happened with RJ that's like, Okay. It's like a pattern. He's one big Spinal Tap moment.
Yeah. Can we make a movie of Hailstorm in the way of Spinal Tap?
Oh,
That's what we
ab
need.
I think, dude, I literally just had this conversation because one of our fans was asking if we'd ever do, a movie about our life eventually, like how like Motley Crue did theirs or Queen or
Right.
whatever. And I'm like, absolutely. But it's going to have to be in that like almost sarcasm mockumentary situation because that would be the truest thing, you know, like with all the stuff with the RVs and the vehicles breaking down and, but yeah.
That's awesome. One of my memories of RJ playing, do you remember the cellar in Struthers, Ohio?
Oh yes, absolutely.
Church pews for the security gates at the
Yep.
front of the stage,
Yep.
but RJ
Sweat
did a
dripping
drum
from the ceiling.
solo. What's that?
Sweat dripping from the ceiling. Did you
Oh, yes, from the pool hall upstairs. RJ using the pipes above him
Oh,
from the upstairs during his drum solo, like, for his
oh my
cymbals.
god. Yep. Yep, it's so true. Jesus. Yeah, if you give him something, he will use it. I mean, there's a reason when he was about 14 years old, he had like a 13-piece kit that he had just been collecting stuff, and so there was like just like a he ended up my dad was, he still is. My dad was handy back in the day, and he took one of his broken cymbals and made it into one of those like spiral things that you actually can see now done professionally, but just carved it out, and he had one of those and like
Right.
like one bass drum cut in the middle of it, but like up on racks like this. It was just silly. He's hilarious. I
That
miss hanging with little bro. He lives in Nashville now, as of recently. He just moved right before the pandemic. So never before have we all four of us been so close, but yet so far away because we can't get with each other. So yeah.
Yeah, because he was living in LA for a bit, wasn't he?
He was. He still
Yeah,
has that place out there, but he's been renting it out. So yeah.
there you go. Okay. All right, and, how about one of the biggest moments for you personally in your career?
Oh wow. That's, honestly, that's really tough because I feel like it's been a series of little ones. I mean, obviously, you can pick, one of the monumental ones, like, we won a Grammy in
Right.
2012, and that was a crazy moment. I feel like the craziest thing about that was that we just didn't know that we were even on their radar, like that type of like level of radar, and we were up against all of our idols, so we truly didn't think we were going to win. We didn't have anything prepared, if we did win. But and when they opened up the envelope and said the Grammy goes to, they didn't say hailstorm. We were listening for like a ha sound, a hey, hailstorm, and they said love bites. So do I. So I'm hearing the L and I'm like, oh, okay, we didn't win. And there was just this collective like silence. And then we're like, wait, that is us. And so it was just chaos. It was like RJ was the first one out of the seat. He's running. And then I'm running after him because I'm like big sister. I'm like, no, you're going to say something silly,
Don't be the first one on the mic.
He was the first one on the mic. I think he had been waiting for this moment his whole life. But then the guys are running after me, like, don't fall in your dress and heels. And yeah, it was just chaos. But I think we could have, if there had been a separate award for most genuinely surprised and shocked band that we had won a Grammy, like we would have gotten that one too. But the great thing that came out of that one is that we had this, I don't know, it was a milestone for all of us, because not because of the Grammy or because of, the fact that maybe, the industry would look at us in a different way, but just having the respect of our peers but also on a more personal level, kind of looking at each other. And we all kind of said the same thing. We said, okay, we were totally crazy for starting a band, and we were totally crazy for keeping it going even when nothing was happening, and even when nobody wanted to work with us or whatever it was. We absolutely are out of our minds for doing that, but we weren't stupid. It's like this was a pretty good idea, guys. Like, I'm glad we're a band. So that was one of those. Yeah, I don't know, it's like just there's all these little things, again, like I told you before, like the fact that we're still together, and the fact that we live in a tour bus, and the fact that we're able, just the idea that I'm able to call this a career instead of just a hobby that I do on the weekends is amazing to me, because I know so many very, very talented bands and very, very talented musicians that never even make it to their first record on a major label, let alone, like, we're working on our fifth now. So it's like, it's just nuts.
That's awesome. Well, it's been a pleasure to be a part of that journey with you. Just seeing you guys grow from that band with One and Done to, opening for Seether and Shine Down at the Cellar in Struthers, Ohio, to headlining major arenas and things like that. It has been a true joy just to watch you guys grow, and it's just fun. You guys have been some of the nicest people in
Oh,
all the business that I can ever say that I've met.
thank you so much, and you too, man. It's like, I mean, you and I go way back, and dude, every time we see you and every time we talk, it's like no time has gone by, and
Yeah.
we in the Hailstorm camp, we call those people desert island friends. Like if you could get together just, and there's only like, there's a small group of it, in our world, because time is elastic and we understand time goes by, people lose
Mhm.
touch, maybe the interests change, whatever it is. And we're lucky to have you, bro. And thanks so much for being a part of our journey, and holding that and being so supportive, and playing our songs. That means a lot to us.
Absolutely. I appreciate it. And one last thing here, Brent from Shinedown's going to be on tomorrow.
Oh, kill
Do you have anything to say to him?
it. Besides that, I miss him. Oh, you should you should tell him, you should encourage him to take scissors to his own hair, because we
Oh,
because we were talking about it, and we had both said, no, we're gonna like hold out. But I kind of want to dare him to do it, and then I want, but then he's got to post it.
so he's got to do his own haircut and then post it. All right.
Yep, yep.
That's the opening line
Double
tomorrow
dog
on
dare.
Happy Hour Live. All right. Well, hang on the line real quick. We're gonna end the broadcast here. Thank you all for checking out Happy Hour Live. Brent Smith's on tomorrow, 3:30 Central. Lzzy Hale with me today.
Thank you so much.
Oh, I got to